Today on Chris Dyer's Creative Friends.
You could unwield an entire lifetime of trauma in a moment if you knew how to do it. First, you have to believe you can. And the problem is everybody out here thinks they can't. They think they're a victim of like everything that's happening and they have no power. So what I'm trying to show people is how to acknowledge these influential energies that are coming in, face them head on, and have the tools to move it and like to heal yourself. And then you can undo lifetimes of karma in just a very short period of time. Whereas our old history was that we didn't have this awakening and we didn't have this understanding. So we were just accruing karma after karma after karma, and our load got so big, the baggage got so heavy that so many of us out here are failing. Because we're like, I try so hard, I'm so good, why does everything go bad? Everything I go for never works out. It's karma, it's old energy.
Judea? Woo! So nice to sit down with you once again. You are the first repeat of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends.
I'm honored.
You're originally episode 24, for those who haven't caught Judea. We had an interview in the mountains of Peru in Cusco, March 2021, and you were a different person back then. Like in the 2-3 years since then, you've died and reborn a million times. And tell us where you're at in your journey. Like, I know there's so much, but like now you're on a totally different path. You're working with Umbanda and Santo Daime. You're working more with the medicine than back then. Tell me a little bit where you're at on your path as a psychic medium. Is that correct?
Yeah,
term?
Clairvoyant medium. Where am I at? Well, I've been going more into doing group work and creating community and gathering people for collective healing rather than kind of phasing out of doing one-on-one sessions, which I've still been doing, but my aspirations at this point moving into the next year is to be focusing more on group work and teaching people how to do what I've been doing, you know, and pass the torch on to them and move into the next phase. And really been in a deep study with my own mediumship, trying to get into new levels of that work so that I can do even more potent healing and facilitating for people. And I found that through the path of Santo Daime and Umbanda, which has kind of landed in my lap, and my life started directing in that way, and I started working with a teacher within that tradition. And yeah, everything's been developing since then, but yeah, it's many deaths and rebirths for sure. Yeah. I feel much different.
So let's get to the basics of what you do. I know you probably got different abilities, powers. What would you say is the main service you do these days, and that you're saying that you want to teach on? Is it mediumship?
Yeah, so right now I've been more focused on the teaching aspect of helping people understand their own intuitive abilities and develop them or awaken them and open them up, and showing them the potential of like where they could actually go with that, and then turning that to help other people. So it's beyond just helping themselves, because we need a bigger battalion out there fighting the forces of darkness, and so I feel like my mission right now is to train as many people as I can to do the good work, and then extend that knowledge forward.
What is that good work?
Eradicating, healing, transmuting, realigning. There's a lot of tricky energies, and the dark forces, in my opinion, are running amok, and it's getting very thick, and I imagine that it's going to get much more intense. And so we need people who understand how to recognize those energies and have the tools in their pocket to heal, to transmute those energies. Because there's a lot of people out there who are being sort of bombarded. Their intuition is opening up, and they're receiving guides and having interdimensional contacts, but it's a very confusing process when people's mediumship first opens up. And we're in this very big collective awakening right now where a lot of people are receiving, and for those who know and will resonate with this, when you have a spiritual awakening, it's very crazy. It feels like you don't know what's what, and everyone thinks you're weird, and you can't validate anything that you're experiencing, and it's very disorienting. And so there's like a very fine line in which people can kind of go into crazy town, or they can find the right tools and teachers to help them understand what's happening and control what's happening, and then learn to work with what's happening to help others. And so I feel like we're in this big transition right now, and there's a lot of people waking up. And so I'm here to show them what I have learned so that they can catch up very quickly.
What's an example of a few tools that you teach people who are all of a sudden having a spiritual psychic awakening and they're seeing a ghost in the corner of the room or an alien up in the sky or their higher self is sitting on the bed like eating some popcorn, checking out the human, and how do you like be like, don't freak out, this is your life jacket that you can hold on to?
Well, on the very base level, validation and community is very important these days because a lot of people who are in the spiritual awakening process feel very alone in their process. And so when you meet other people who are like, oh yeah, like I've seen that, or that's a thing, or that's real, and I can explain how this works, that helps people settle and ground. And so coming into grounding would be the very first tool. And so you can be very elevated and have these mystical interdimensional experiences, but you also want to be grounded too. You need to have your feet on the ground. So that would be like the first tool that I would explain. Because when people have spiritual awakening, they're so up in their upper chakras and they're so out in the ethers, and then they're having a hard time relating to what's happening on this earthly plane.
Yeah, the video game seems to be less important.
Yeah.
But you're still in it.
Yeah. They disengage. And so grounding would be one of the first things. Protection, how to protect your energy, because a lot of those who open up these sensitivities, they're being bombarded by the energies of the room, the energy of the stars and the moon and the people, and then forget the psychic projections. And we haven't even talked about entities and spirits and whatever other interdimensional beings. And then, the aspects of their own karma that's coming up and the energies they've already been wielding coming up to smack them in the face. And they're becoming hypersensitive to it. So, the next step would be, how do we protect our energy from that? And then a more advanced study is going into like, now, how do we differentiate and like vet these entities and beings that are coming in to truly discern that these are beings of light that are here to help? Because there are many beautiful beings and there are many tricky entities. And a lot of those tricky entities are very good at pretending to be good beings. And so when you're undeveloped and you don't understand, it's very easy to get kind of caught up in the mix. And so what I teach people is like the tools on how to appropriately set yourself up to make a clear and good communication with the beings of light that you should be working with. And learning how to acknowledge or recognize the tricky entities that are coming in to disrupt you.
So it's basically like a fine-tuning of your inner antenna intuition to be like, this entity is telling me all these wonderful things and that I gotta go out there and buy this ice cream shop in the middle. Like I had this dude in my neighborhood, I spray painted his ice cream weed shop. He would eat mushrooms all day and the entities told him to buy that place and that he would be very successful. But all he'd do was sit in the back eating more mushrooms, and his whole business flopped, and he was confused. It's like, the entities told me that I had to do this thing, and then...
Exactly.
That's
an example of what I'm talking about, because some can present that they're giving you good advice, and on paper, you're like, this sounds like logically good advice, but is it the highest? Because there's infinite paths, there's like the worst choice and the best choice, and all the infinite choices in between. And there's a lot of spirits who are well-meaning, just like a person who's maybe not perfect and wants to, help somebody out. The spirits are like that too. They mean well. They see somebody who's eager to be open and communicate, and they want to ask questions. And there's many spirits around. They're like, oh, I'll come answer your questions for you, and they mean well. But are they truly enlightened beings, And so the study of mediumship, of where I'm at and what I'm trying to teach others, is how to fine-tune and ensure that you are truly communicating with the highest of the high.
You really seem like you want to help all of humanity get better at developing their spiritual abilities, so when the spiritual world opens up more, we're more prepared to navigate those waters. And it seems like your new book is a good tool where it's like an encyclopedia of everything spiritual, from crystals to spirits to the dimensions to the chakras to the food to the smells to the vibration and sound healing. It seems like you put everything into a book. How long did it take you to make this book? It just came out. Tell me about it.
I started the book a little over 2 years ago, and it wasn't intentionally supposed to be a book. It's because everybody had been begging me to give them classes and teach them. And then I thought, well, I need to have a manual. And so I started writing the manual, and then it became very big, and I had a few hundred pages already written. And then I realized I hadn't even gotten through like a portion of what I needed to. And so then it kind of organically turned into a whole book. And it was essentially my whole coursework that I was developing. So what the book is, the way I perceived it was my 19-year-old self when I had my first spiritual awakening, because I had no teachers, mentors, guides. I had nobody directing me, and I was just screwing everything up and figuring everything out the hard way. And I had a lot of grief in the process. And so now my older, wiser self thinks, man, if I could go back to that 19-year-old self and say, here's everything that you need to know and just follow this instruction and you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble. And so that's what I compiled into the coursework. And that coursework is, it's like a coursework that builds upon itself. And I designed it in such a way that it mirrors my own process. So what did I learn first? And the only teachers I had were the guides and the spirits that I was speaking to and communicating with. And it was like, okay, I went through that lesson first, and then this was the next lesson. And so everything was formulated to carry you through kind of along the spiritual journey that I went through. And I set it up as a coursework, so it has instructions. You go through each section. If you go through it in each order and read all the material and do all the homework, by the time you get to the end, you have a strong sense of your own intuition. You have tools to develop. You have, when you encounter spiritual challenges, there's everything that you need is in here. And then beyond that, I have a module 2 coursework. So this is module 1, where I actually take people who take the module 1 course and teach them how to actually do psychic readings for people and do the energy work and alignments.
Beautiful. How many pages?
I think there's almost 400.
Crazy.
Yeah. Almost 400
That's
pages.
a thick encyclopedia, and I recommend it to everybody. It's like, I love organization, and that's a good compilement of all these interesting things that we want, that you covered on your podcast all these years. You don't do your podcast anymore?
No.
It was just too much on your plate?
Yeah, it was about, I just felt like I was in a big transition this year. This year has been spiritually probably the most intense year that I've had. And I pushed myself really hard. And I knew that there were certain things that I needed to let go in order to make space for, the new projects that I hope to be doing in the future. So.
Was it difficult? Because it was a popular podcast that was doing really good in the charts, and now all these psychic and spiritual topics are becoming more and more popular. You don't care about that. You're just like, well, how can I serve the best? And I guess one of the projects got to go. Do you miss it, or it had its time and place?
It had its time and place, and I'm very grateful for it. And it really opened up my own community and allowed people to find me. And I'm super stoked on it, but I don't really miss it in a way. Like, I feel like I have other things that I want to do and talk about, and I have more time and energy to do that now because, the podcast, I did everything. I did the production and the editing and the promoting and all these things, and it takes up a lot of time, as you know, so, and my time is very little.
So I got so many questions, like, I was always like, oh man, whenever I get Judea back, I just got this list of questions. But I guess I'd say, from all the things I want to ask you, let's go to the basics of all reality. What is reality and what is God?
God is reality and reality is God.
Yeah. And how is it fractalized? Like, how deep it goes, and what's the root? Is the seed embedded in the whole everything of existence?
Yeah, my humble and interesting opinion is that we are all an aspect or a droplet of God, and everything in all creation is God. This is God. We're here. It's right here. We're in it. And but I also see God as a consciousness of love, unconditional love and support that wants us to succeed and wants us to win and is rooting for us. But with that comes some trials and tribulations that are sanctioned by God, you know? And sometimes it feels torturous and we're like, oh, why is this happening? It feels like a punishment, but it's really for our greater good. It's just an experience. It's just that when we're in it, it really sucks, you know? But truly the consciousness of God, as I perceive it, is always trying to show us to come back into that place of love and worthiness in ourselves, to know that like really we're here to enjoy and to have fun and to be blessed, but you have to like come to that clarity in yourself, because there's so many people here who have a sort of sufferable mentality. Like they think that, you know, it's not going to happen for me, and you know, and a lot of the matrix of this reality is that we are co-creating everything through our thought consciousness, and there's many hidden deep layers, and we're influenced by, you know, old energies that are tucked inside of our field that might be hidden from other lifetimes. But all of these frequencies are like codes that are coming up, and we're reflecting that out into our reality that's creating the disruptions in our life. And then we get attached to it and we perceive like, oh, this is what's really happening, when really all God's trying to show us is that we're loved and we're worthy, and we can choose not to be in that state of suffering. But it's easier said than done. It's simple, but not so simple at the same time. You know?
To some degree, it seems like it's human nature to suffer.
Right. There's a self-punishment that we think that by being a martyr or by suffering, we're proving our worth. And that's really not the truth. And that's sort of like the old truth. And we can find the worthiness in ourselves and choose to be happy and choose to be blessed. But in order to get there, we have to clear out all of those old insecurities, all those old wounds. And it's a big process, because a lot of us have lived a lot of lives. We've been walking this walk for a long time, and we've accumulated a lot of stuff. And but that's also part of my mission, is to help people understand that that's what's happening. Like I consider myself like a spiritual mechanic, like somebody who understands a car really well and the engine and all the parts. Like if you want to fix, you know, something specific in your car, you're not going to look in the trunk. You're not going to look at the tires. You're going to look at where the problem is. And so spiritually, when I look at people, it is like an engine, and I just know where the parts are and what energies are related to that, and how, if we want to fix something very specific, this is where you go, that's how you look, that's how you remedy it, and then the healing can be very fast.
That's beautiful. Such a complicated equation, this reality, huh? Because we're in the physical realm, and we got all this mental activity, and our bodies got chemicals and wants and needs and hunger and emotions. That is like, what is an emotion, you know? But then you got all your like past lives that you're carrying. You got your like other versions of yourself in spiritual realms. At some point of existence, you're also source dreaming up this video game. But then it can become like a point of view of self-centeredness, like, oh, I'm God creating reality, but so is everybody else. So it's confusing because we experience separation in this life, yet we're all one existence. What's the goal? What are we doing here? What's this? What's happening?
I had a vision once that God just wanted to experience everything. And so we're all out on that mission to allow God to experience everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that's what he's up to. He's like, oh, I wanted to throw myself in all these human bodies to have
whatever,
all
any
the experiences,
potential,
good
all
and
of
bad.
it. Yeah.
Is there any experience that God shouldn't have? I guess he's having them all, like falling off buildings.
And who knows what exists in other worlds, you know?
Getting your foot run over by a truck. That's the experience he wanted to have, I guess.
Yeah.
Finding $5 action figures at the store.
Yeah.
Every time I eat chocolate, I'm like, this one's for you, God. You could only eat this piece of chocolate right now through me. So you owe me one. I gotta live this shit life now. I'm just joking. It's blessed life. Okay, so we're trapped in this fractalized version of reality. Is, say, if source, consciousness, oneness, absolute, God, that probably is encompassing it all, but then it sprints into like God and not God, or Satan, or maybe even Shiva or a demigod, and then that creates some kind of guru, and then that splinters to like a semi-enlightened human, and all the way to like just like somebody who's totally asleep. And then what? And then it's animals? Are they like lower on the totem pole of God expressing downwards, or are we the basement? Is this world the basement? Is there another world that's even more dense and
Yeah.
more lost than
I mean, I
ours?
guess you're talking about levels of consciousness, from like simplistic just existence
Hmm.
to more complicated, of like an awareness of like, oh, I exist, and then it's like, oh, there's like a something else that exists, and I can make a choice. So it's like levels of consciousness, I guess, is what you're looking at, and then beyond the humans, then you have like the different spiritual guides and the different layers that come up until you get to such high levels that you're completely detached from the human experience and you're just in states of love and bliss.
Yeah, and that could be right here, right now. You don't have to go to a different place or dimension in order to experience that. You could just access it here if you can.
Yeah, theoretically, I
Yeah.
think that you could, but this reality is very dense, so it's hard to break through. So in our histories, there was only like really high level, teachers and, spiritual masters that came in that could achieve that. And it was very secret and it was very hidden. It was all these little mystery schools. But now the energies are changing, the information is more available, it's more accessible, and the combination of the vibrational shift that we're in and this influx of information that is so readily available at a snap of a finger is helping to accelerate this awareness. So what people consider to be this like new age thing is actually very ancient very ancient
Yeah.
spiritual practice that's
From times where people were a little bit more awake in that way.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And once again, is there a goal or a end point where God's like, all right, I had all the experiences, I'm ready to fold back into myself? Does it go into eternity? Or do we go, like, say, if we become a little bit more spiritually aware, do we move to another planet and become aliens? I'm giving you so many questions right now, and I brought aliens, and I also wanted to ask, like, are we aliens? Are we the combination of many aliens? What's the influence aliens are having on us right now, both as I'm an alien now as a human, and also like, oh, well, they're also in the government. They're also like invisibly right here sitting with us. Like, anyway, sorry I'm throwing so much questions to you, but you can go in any route you want with that one.
Just having read a lot of people and seeing the different layers of their soul and their various incarnations, what I perceive is that this reality is just like a borrowed body. It's a borrowed vessel, as there are many different types of vessels that we can incarnate in. And some of those realities are much more heightened and much more centered and in love, and maybe time doesn't exist in those spaces, and we have different gifts and different abilities. And sometimes we come into this human life, and this is a very dense reality, and we have many, many limitations. So it's a very deep challenge to be here. But sometimes we'll go incarnate on that other dimensional plane to access certain tools. So when we come into this dense reality, we're able to, tap in and break through the veil and get back to God with a little bit more ease. So it's not like we're just stuck here on the earthly plane over and over again. Sometimes we're here and there in different places as different beings and different creatures and different, extraterrestrials. Yeah. So I think that we are certainly not limited to just a human identity. And I think it goes so infinitely deep, but in our own awakening, we only have access to so much. It's like, who knows? I remember a lot of my lifetimes and a lot of my different, interdimensional supernatural identities. And there's probably much more than that, but is it relevant for me to know right now? And when it is divinely timed for me to understand that, that's when that information will come back. And so that's also part of the spiritual awakening, is remembering your whole self.
Right. You can get more information, but or even abilities to see, but that doesn't necessarily make you wise and use the power. Like, oh, I know all my lifetimes. You could get full of yourself and use it in an egoic way, or you could observe it with wisdom. Be like, well, if I fucked up as an alien on that lifetime, maybe I'll try not to do that in this lifetime.
There's like I went through an interesting passage earlier in the year where my guides arrived and they said, they were getting hard on me because I wasn't allowing myself to embody these higher aspects. For people, especially, in moments like where you're on a psychedelic journey and like you remember this amazing life or this amazing embodiment and it feels so real and incredible. And then you come down off that high and you're like, oh, I'm just a flawed human being. I can't believe I thought that crazy thing about myself.
Yeah.
And then some time will go by and then something else will happen. And so my guides arrived and they said, we've been telling you your whole life what you are. Why don't you accept it?
Yeah.
And here I am telling everybody to let their divinity shine and to not hold back. And I thought that I was so much expressing that, but I realized I was actually really suppressing it. Like who gave me this idea that it was shameful to think that I was amazing or incredible or beautiful or powerful? It's like this hypnosis that's on everybody. It's like we're not allowed because it's a big ego. It's a big, I don't know. It's a big illusions of grandeur, and I had to come to some sense of peace and acceptance that it was okay for me to believe this in myself. Like, why can't I believe that I'm amazing and special and I have, this divine connection? And so I went through a big process in this year, particularly about really allowing myself to embody that and allow those energies to come forward. And this is what I'm trying to teach other people, is because when you start breaking through the veil of your limited human identity and you start moving through those past lives and incarnations, it's like, yes, that's who you are. Let it come forward, because this is the time of the awakening. We're coming back to our whole infinite selves, like our everything, the memory of everything, not this limited identity that we're in.
It's such a fine line, I find. Not even talking about anything psychic, just being like a human being that loves itself fully and like, I love being Chris, this is so great, but not going too far and becoming arrogant or full of yourself or blinded by this love that then separates you at the end. This thing where it's like enough love to be, but not go too far and overpower others. Like, how
it's a fine line, but it's exactly those that corrupted it that made it ugly for other people to say, "Wait, ooh, you love yourself?" Like, having like a retraction because somebody says, "No, I love myself." And there's a lot of people who be like, "Oh, you're so full of yourself. You love yourself." It's not a bad thing.
How could you do this thing that I can't do?
Yeah, but the truth is like that's what we're getting to, is like in the Great Awakening, is like truly a love, and by truly loving yourself, you're expressing your love to God, because we are aspects of God. And but you're right, it's a fine line, it's a fine study, it's a lot of work that you have to do to get into that place of self-awareness and appreciation and love of self without taking it into some ego power trip. And but that's sort of the paradigm that we're moving out of, and moving into a place of balance with all of that. So
the era of the guru, that era looks up to, and in that position they receive so much energy that they seem like they all get corrupted at the end of the day, or most of them at least, and it ruins it for all the people who have good intentions of advancing on their spiritual path.
Thing that's happening now is there can't be false gurus, because the clarity and the awareness of what people truly are is very transparent. And so the new leaders, these new spiritual leaders that are coming up, these teachers, I want to say more than leaders, the new spiritual teachers that are coming are being acknowledged and recognized without having to be told that that's who they are. Where the old vibe was like, oh, I'm a guru and I'm this like enlightened being and you need to listen to everything that I say. And maybe they were corrupt in their spirit, and maybe they weren't walking a righteous path. And all of that's coming to a head. There's a lot of stuff that's being dug up right now, that people are not taking things at face value, and they're seeing the real truth in things. And so the future reality that we're going into is that no spiritual teacher is going to have to tell anybody that they have it. It'll be recognized. It'll be very obvious, So
you just got to do it, not really preach it, or maybe preaching is part of the doing it, depending on what your mission is. But if it comes from a good place in your heart, then it's all positive. I think if the video game that we're playing has a goal, I think it's just like the self-love, loving yourself.
Yeah,
and in that
I think
place,
so. And loving each other.
Yeah, from that place, once you love yourself, it's easier to love others, because there's no like how could I love, there's less.
That's the truth. You have to love yourself to truly know to love others.
Do you think we got a chance to do that as humanity? Yes. Like with all the madness that we see in the world?
I have 1,000% faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, but it's got to start with our own individual life we live in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it easy for you, or is it continually difficult, even with your perspectives?
It's easier and easier, but it's still difficult. I think back at like myself 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where I'd go through longer periods of beating myself up and being ultra critical and like insecure and all the things. And now I'm at a point where those periods are less and less, and I'm finding more peace and more appreciation. It's not like I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, I'm so amazing, I love myself so much. It's just I have more peace within myself. There's not a lot of, negative self-talk that's happening, and I still hit those patches.
Those negative self-taught, is that you, voices of the past, or is
That's a
those
good question.
interdimensional entities that are trying to like create little holes in whatever permeability you might have in your spiritual body to infiltrate and then lodge to suck your energy?
Yeah, exactly what you said.
Okay.
So, but like,
I can only imagine it.
truly, at the source of who we are divine, beautiful, pure beings, expressions of God, and we are like vessels of love and light. And so all the influences that are coming to us are tricky energies that find where the leak is in your field. Like, if you have a disruption in your energy, that whether it's thought consciousness or an entity or an influence that comes in that will start, beating yourself up. So anything that is happening in your reality that is projecting any kind of negativity at yourself is, in my opinion, a dark external influence that's trying to tear you down and break you down. And so then we need to acknowledge and recognize that and see it as an external source and remember, our autonomy and our purity and like coming back to that. And that can help
shoo it off.
Shoo it off and to seal. And the other work is to seal the leak, to seal the hole where these energies are coming in.
Because I didn't smoke weed for like a year and a half, and now I started smoking again, and I like the vibration it causes my body, and I feel very expansive and even more intuitive, and I feel energies, but at the same time it's like I open up and things come in and they start picking at me, and I'm like, shoo, but then they come back 2 minutes later, it's like shoo, and it becomes really exhausting to the point it's like, sure, whatever, talk bullshit to me. I'll just try not to fall for it energetically. But like, if you gotta like, insult me, at least I'll try to keep on catching it and know that that's not coming from me, and that I know that I'm good no matter what.
It's not coming from you, but you do still need to take accountability, because none of those things would have access to you unless you yourself were already holding something that aligned with the vibration that they were coming in. And if you were holding a very high and pure and clean vibration, those entities and influential energies wouldn't even be able to have access to you. So those little leaks in which they're coming in, it's like a cut that gets infected, and the entities are the infection that come into that little wound. But the thing is because we're living such this limited reality, and we feel like we're just this one body in this one timeline, and we forget that we have all these infinite experiences and these many layers of things that we can't remember. Maybe we did these bad things in another lifetime, and this is why we beat up ourselves in this lifetime, or have overwhelming anxiety or fears that we can't, justify for having in this lifetime because it's so hidden. But that's also part of this great awakening that we're in, is those layers are becoming more transparent to us. We're acknowledging, oh, I'm remembering this from a past life, or I'm feeling that this energy is like a block that has a texture and it has a feeling, and I can literally lift it up out of my body and patch it back up. We didn't have access to stuff like that, and we can work with healers and work with ourselves in our own, intention meditations to heal these things, instead of just dragging them around with us, suffering every day, suffering, feeling helpless, feeling like we have no capacity to
we are the masters of our tempo and our reality, but it almost seems like it's like you need to be well trained to dominate this avatar properly and make it function.
Let's empower people to know that they have the ability to do it. There's so many people who don't even know that they can. You could unwield an entire lifetime of trauma in a moment if you knew how to do it. First, you have to believe you can. And the problem is everybody out here thinks they can't. They think they're a victim of like everything that's happening, and they have no power. And so what I'm trying to show people is how to acknowledge these influential energies that are coming in, face them head on, and have the tools to move it and like to heal yourself. And then you can undo lifetimes of karma in just a very short period of time. Whereas our old history was that we didn't have this awakening and we didn't have this understanding. So we were just accruing karma after karma after karma, and our load got so big, the baggage got so heavy that so many of us out here are failing. Because we're like, I try so hard, I'm so good, why does everything go bad? Everything I go for never works out. It's karma. It's old energy. But we can clean that, and we can clean it very quickly. It's all available to us right now.
Oh, what's the cheat?
What's the cheat?
To
Forgiveness.
clean all the karma from all the past lives.
Forgiveness.
For yourself or for
Forgiveness
others?
for others and forgiveness for yourself. And that is the cheat.
Huh.
Because everything that you find in your life, well, you know, you're the victim. This person did this and that, and you know, it's not me, it's them. Everything that you're trying to forgive everybody else for is something that you're actually trying to forgive in yourself, because there's something that you did that mirrors what this person's doing to you, but you forgot that you did it. And so it's so easy to come into that place of blame. And so if you can find the forgiveness in others and have the humility to understand that I am not so perfect, even if you lived a righteous life this entire lifetime, that you've likely lived other incarnations in which you weren't so righteous and you did terrible, terrible things.
Lots of killing.
Yeah, all kinds of things. There's karma you could be having from your very first incarnation still, you know, just, you know, hanging on to you. So, you know, forgiveness in others and forgiveness in yourself is probably the most direct path.
I like it. I can do that. I can try. I always try to forgive.
Forgiveness is also very hard to do.
You got to give it time. You can't force it. You just can't be like, okay, I'll forgive everybody. That'd be a lie. No. You know,
it has to be a genuine
It has to be something you can feel, and sometimes only time can let me like, you know what, they hurt me, but I'm over it. I let it go. I think having bad memory helps with that. I got a terrible memory, and I just like forget what people hurt. Sometimes people bring it back. Oh, remember that person fucked you over? It's like, oh yeah, I super forgot about it. I don't care anymore. And you know, hopefully that means that no one has to be punished for their trespass, and vice versa. No one has to punish me whenever I screwed up.
But also, you know, the thing is that why did this situation manifest into my life? And it's because you're holding a code of this energy somewhere deep in your field that had attracted that same energy to reflect upon it. And you're being given an opportunity to handle it in a different way, you know, or see a different perspective. Yeah.
I'd say like, as I've learned to create boundaries with people who are takers over givers, I suffer less from those who come to just steal my energy or physical things, because, you know, I recognize it quicker. Actually, having a partner like Paulina helps me be like, watch out for this character. They've already like shown a couple red flags, and you know what? Just cut it off right away. Why you keep on giving the next cheek or opportunity to be, you know, taken advantage of? And sometimes that seems ruthless, but at the same time, well, but it's self-love, respective for me not to, you know, push away those who want to take.
But then why do we keep going into those patterns? Because there's this unconscious hypnosis that I acknowledge. I recognize very clearly that people self-punish because they feel like, oh, in this lifetime that's hidden from my memory, I did this terrible thing. So in order to rectify this, I need to punish myself over and over again with these things. But now you're in this incarnation, you can't remember that you set that up that way. But you can actually get out of it. You know, you can actually stop the whole cycle. And that's part of the, you know, the study of, you know, your own spiritual growth and understanding that you can, and this is available to us. But yeah.
I love it. Thank you for that great answer. So you work with plant medicines, you always did, but now you do a lot of Aya, and you already have clairvoyance, which is clear vision of things that most people can't see. And what is Aya? It's just like a multiplies it or takes you into the other dimension more clearly? Like,
yeah, it certainly opens up the channel. You know, it takes it from, you know, maybe if most of the world is on a scale of 1 to 10, hovering at a 1 or 2, and then I maybe hover at like a 4 or 5, and then ayahuasca just takes me to like a 10.
Wow.
You know, so it's like very open. You know, as a medium, I don't want to be on all the time. I don't want to see the stuff. So it's a delicate exercise to keep everything toned down so I can live a normal life. But when you're taking plant medicines or psychedelics,
the floodgates.
But you go in it with respect in an appropriate way because you're ready to face, it's like, okay, I'm not going to like bypass, and I'm not going to ignore the things that I need to really look at. And you're giving yourself the space to ask spirit or ask the medicine to show me what it is that I'm not looking at or acknowledging or addressing in my life. And so, it's a very humiliating and humbling path to take. And there's that aspect of it, but it also opens up the space for more development with your own intuitive gifts and being able to communicate with your guides and receive instructions from God, from spirit, and to uncover hidden aspects of yourself, like past lives, or those hidden traumatic memories that we just tuck away and pretend aren't there. And so the plant medicines help us pull up all those truths.
Hi, we take this little pause from our conversations for me to let you know that I got a brand new art book. This is my second art book, Shamanic Journey, that just came out with Last Gasp Publications. It's a 256-page book, full color, shiny, beautiful pages with full of my art, writing, stories, basically everything I've done in the last 13 years. And I worked really hard on this book. It took me months to lay out by myself, and obviously the art has been a labor of love of many years, and I've condensed it all in this beautiful book that now is available on positcreations.net. You can get a signed version, you can get an unsigned version for a little bit cheaper. And yeah, this won't run out of electricity. On this digital world where we gotta charge everything, or a solar flare could knock out the electricity of the world and you'd be like, whoa, where did all my Chris Dyer go? No, this runs on energy forever. You never gotta charge it, you never gotta water it. It'll always be there to give you new inspiration and art. And I've done this with a lot of love, and I hope that you will get a copy for your own personal library. And reflect yourself in it and make your own book and story of your life. But here's mine, and I hope you will enjoy it. positchristians.net. Thank you.
Do you think you're gonna keep on going at the rhythm that you're going, or do you think at one point you're gonna get like kind of like tired from all the revolutions? Because like I find like when I was doing Aya 6 times a year, which is not even that much compared to what you're doing, I feel it would like open up. Yes, I'm getting upgraded, but with the upgrades comes like harder experiences in life. It's like, okay, you stepped up a level. Okay, now let me throw this giant, situation for you to handle. And I feel like the more we work with the medicines, the harder the video game does it get to a point where it's like, can I just take a break? Can I take like 3 years off to just do nothing and not have this? Or is it like, no, it's go time, all hands on board, and let's go and save humanity mode?
Well, right now that's how I feel, but I'm, certainly that could potentially happen. But, I was like you when I started working with plant medicines. I do it a few times a year, and the integration process was always so hard. It was like one ceremony. It could take me like over a year to even make sense of it, and all the different shifts. But I was also a lot heavier energetically, and there was a lot more to siphon out, And when I started working with the plant medicines more regularly, I had my ass handed to me. It was hard. I was on the ground. I was suffering.
I didn't think you were going to be able to do that whole Santo Daime path where like all the entities are intense. Coming through you.
Oh, it was super intense, but it really taught me in a very profound way how to be strong and how to work with those energies. And so I kept just going, even though I was suffering, even though I'd go in and be like, oh, this is going to be terrible. I'm never going to do this again. And I would just still keep going. And eventually I came to some breakthrough where it's like, okay, I can stand and I can sit straight and I can be clear and I can be more firm. And I know how to work with these energies now. And so I'm not saying that it's easy because, I just recently had a couple ceremonies that were incredibly difficult, incredibly hard. But yeah, I don't know. I'll say this. I didn't consciously choose to do it. It was what was presented to me, and that's where my path went, and I'm just following the instructions, and this is what's happening. I never...
You're not going to chicken out.
Yeah,
You-
I'm just following the guidance. It's like
yeah,
I'm at this point now, and I feel like many people are getting to this point, is like we're beyond consciously choosing what's happening. There's a current that we're feeling, and there's like messages, instructions that are coming in, and we're just kind of going in the direction of that. And those who are on the more elevated awakened path, I'm certain will resonate with what I'm saying. It's like I'm not even choosing anymore. This is what's happening. That's how it's going to be
yeah.
orchestrated.
There's
And
no fighting the current.
no, and it's just a flow. It's just a flow, and that's where I'm at right now. So I didn't say this is what I want to do. This
Yeah.
is just what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you happy?
Yeah, I feel very blessed. I feel very lucky, and I found some amazing teachers. And that path of Santo Daime and Umbanda, it really resonates, and it was everything that I ever really wanted. It was like the teacher or the school, the spiritual school that I always really desired. But it's also a very intense path, especially Santo Daime. When I had like looked at it from the outside looking in, I had all kinds of resistance because it's very structured and they have uniforms, and it was like, I'm a rebel.
Yeah.
I'm an anarchist. That's the last thing I want to do is do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
But what I learned in that is when we collectively work together to that level of refinement, the portals of healing that we can open up, and if everybody does their part just so in such a respectful and serious manner, it's incredible what we can achieve spiritually. And not only that, but within those paths, there's a lot of mediumship, and there's a lot of psychic healers, and it's an syncretic path. It is Christian and Afro-Brazilian and indigenous, and it touched on everything that I already felt that I was. So I very much aligned with it. And it's maybe not a path for everybody, but it certainly was a path for me. But not.
It sounds like some like high level mathematical, spiritual mathematics training.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I would say so.
It's like some kung fu.
But from the outside looking in, you wouldn't think that. You would
Yeah.
just think this is like a
People in white, like clapping around.
a church
Yeah.
that it's very, we're praying to Jesus and that's all that's happening. But no, it's not. It's super mystical. It's very esoteric. There's so much to learn. And then there's a mix of Santo Daime and Umbanda, which is just a study of mediumship and working with the different spiritual guides. And those two paths converged in the 80s, and it became Umbandaime. And so it was a mix of working, through the traditions of Umbanda mixed with the traditions of Santo Daime, and that became its own path. And I love it,
Nice.
But I still, work with the other traditions that I worked with before, like
Yeah,
Shipibo.
you're not like closed up.
No, I love it all. It all has its place.
I had a girlfriend back in the day from Fort Lauderdale, from this area, Ariane, and she was Brazilian, and her aunts took her to Umbanda class at 14 years old because she was already showing signs of like being psychic, and
Yeah.
she was starting to get trained. And then I think she had some guides working with her, and then when we hooked up, I think her guides crept on me, and even after we broke up, I'd had some psychics being like, "Oh, you got some sexually transmitted entities on you, huh?" It's like, you got some Brazilian critters in you because the portal between you and her is still open. Do you want me to cut them out? Do you want me to move them out? And at the beginning, it's like, "Oh no, maybe they're helping me," but eventually, it's like, "No, I want my temple cleaned."
Right. I mean, who's to know? Like, I don't know. I don't know how deep she was into it or how developed she was, but yeah, there's definitely some influences that can come in. But Umbanda is a really great path for people who already have very open mediumship and are working with guides and doing like channeling and trance channeling and things like that, because it can help them learn how to sort of exercise the muscle of mediumship and learning how to get very comfortable with working with the guides in a very sealed and protected container. So you know that you're working, what kind of guides you're working with and how to work with them, and get to feel them, because it's in Umbanda you're working with incorporation mediumship, which is when you really step out and you allow the spirits to come in and utilize your body as an instrument to like be up, walking around and speaking and
Smoke a cigarette.
yeah, or a cigar maybe, or like a pipe or something like that. They don't really smoke. Well, no, I guess some of the spirits.
So
like
who
cigars.
are these guides and spirits? Are they culturally African, Brazilian, former humans now being spirit, or they're interdimensionals that never had a human experience?
Many
yet?
of them are, said to be people who were incarnate, and when they had transcended into the astral dimension, that they basically made an agreement with higher, more divine beings to maintain in the space, to work very close with the earthly plane, with people, in order to help humanity, in the healing process. And so there's many different types of spirits, and they all have a different kind of energy. Like there's indigenous spirits that are more tribal, and there's like feminine spirits that are very beautiful and elegant, and there's the spirits of the children that bring much joy and love, and there's the spirits of the old spirits that are like oracles, and they're super wise, and they have so much love, unconditional love, and sweetness to give. So there's all these different kinds of energies, and there's many mediums who don't even understand Umbanda who are already receiving. But what it is it's a study that helps you refine, like, well, that's what this kind is. And it gives you a category. It gives you, it's not just random, that there's meaning and definition behind all these different spirits that we're encountering. And what I found in the path of Umbanda is it helps me understand, because I've always been a medium. I've always seen spirits.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got into that path that I was like, oh, now I'm understanding what all of this is.
So these Umbanda spirits are not specific to people who practice Umbanda, or
not always.
Or,
Like I didn't know even what Umbanda was, and I was already receiving these different spiritual guides.
But do these spirits want to kick it more with this particular culture because they're intentionally opening up to them?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say so.
But they could also come and influence me if they felt like that was something of benefit.
I mean, you might already have one that you've been working with for years. I feel like when I awaken to the awareness of these guides that I have, that they've been working with me for many, many, many lifetimes. And now they're just manifesting through this particular path so I can have greater understanding and development with them. But they've been with me my whole life. They've been with me in other lifetimes, and we worked with each other in different ways. But now I'm moving into a new level of working with these particular guides with, incorporation and channeling and doing healings and consultations and things like that.
They heal through you. So you open up to, say, like the old lady that likes to smoke her Cuban cigars, and you are her Osa, and then she gets to do the healing on others through your body.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest entity that not even human, like some interdimensional spider, bat, dragon, do those come through too? And you're like, oh shit.
Okay, yes. So an undeveloped medium, when you become open, if you have that level of mediumship like me, when my mediumship, incorporation mediumship first opened up, I was being bombarded with all kinds of spirits, suffering spirits, dark spirits, good spirits, middle spirits, and it's such a subtle energy, you can't tell what's what. And it was sort of like, I felt like one of those revolving doors in a hotel, that keeps spinning, and just spirit after spirit after spirit. And there was a lot of strange things that came through, but that's part of the study, is like learning how to control that, to differentiate, and then like only work with one specific guide, and then develop that relationship with the guide. And that's what the school of Umbanda is. So what is the weirdest one?
What's the weirdest one?
I mean,
Chitara?
No, I mean the guides, well, I guess from the outside looking in, people would look at my more developed guide as the weirdest one, because they're the most potent. They're the ones that are most expressive. And astral beings are not like human beings, they're very wild and expressive. And they can speak different languages, and they have different types of body movements, and it can look very strange. But as a receiver, to say that what I have felt inside me incorporate are like the suffering spirits and the dark ones, those are the weirdest ones, because they're carrying so much ickiness and yuckiness and processes about their life. And I much rather...
You allow that kind of spirit?
I don't allow it, but in my development I had to go through passages in which that was happening, but it was part of my learning to understand what that is, so I can compare it to, like, well, that's a dark energy, and this is a good
and you
spirit.
Don't want that to come and dirty
you don't.
That's for somebody else.
So
do somebody else be like, hey, negative energies and demons of the world, come and fill me in and have your way, or let me heal you because I'm that powerful? There's
a lot of conspiracy theories surrounded around that exact thing. There are
people who open up to demons are not trying to heal the demon, they're trying to be empowered by the demon. But is there somebody who's a healer who's like, I'm so developed, I'm so confident, I'm so powered, bring it, fill me in with Satan itself and I will heal Satan inside myself. Is there somebody at that level?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Would you want to get to that level, or is that not your video game?
I mean, I've had interesting experiences where I've taken on what I perceive to be demons face on, you know, and like helped heal, you know.
Because
But
they
do
also
I
are,
want to do
they're
that?
also God.
Do I
They're
want
God
to do
on
that?
having an experience as a demon.
It's not pleasant. I don't recommend it,
Yeah.
you know, but
Sometimes you gotta do what you
you
gotta
gotta
do.
do what you gotta do.
So, you've been working with people, you've been healing your students or the people that come with you, been training your army of light. I think we're all trying to like become better human beings so we can be service of each other, because as you said, there's a war between good and evil right now, a spiritual battle that perhaps we can't see, or maybe we see it too clear, but it's confusing. People observe the world right now, and I'd say most people probably think the world's coming to an end soon enough, or that the wrong leader will come and destroy everything they love, when we see wars about to pop around the world, and when are these aliens going to come to either save us or destroy us? Like, there's a lot of anxiety that's both the higher energy that's coming through. If anything, like when I do get high and I feel the anxiety, it's like, okay, learn how to ride that, you know, electrocution of energy that's this uncomfortable, but you got to stay centered through it all. So all of humanity is going through this. I feel. Where do you observe we're at from your perspective, seeing it from a more spiritual view?
In my opinion, we're already in the process. It's already started, but it's so obscured, and people are still in the illusion that everything's fine, but it's not. There's some very big spiritual energies that are coming in, and yeah, there is a big battle between the dark and the light. It's a spiritual war that's happening, and there's an influx of dark energies that are coming in, but just the same, there's an influx of these very high, bright, you know, as my teacher says, rescue beings that are coming in to help this battle, and people are confronting a lot of these energies. And if we can maintain our clarity and our alignment, then we can benefit and be surrounded by these beings of light and be protected. But for those that are still digging through their fears and their insecurities and their doubts or their ignorance, you know, they're being very much influenced by these dark energies. And unfortunately, the pressure, as I perceive it, has to be immense in order to get people to snap out of the hypnosis. You know, every great spiritual breakthrough happens under, you know, a dark night of the soul or a great deal of pressure. And humanity as a collective is going through that, or about to go through that, where the pressure is about to get so immense that it's going to have to force people to look to something outside of themselves, because the solutions are not going to be able to be gathered from any physical place. You can't buy your way out of it. You can't build your way out of it. You can't, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do. So anybody who's been on a spiritual path, when you get to that level of like brokenness within your own soul, what do? You pray, you reach out, you ask for mercy. Sometimes you don't even know what you're asking for or who you're speaking to, but it makes you look to something outside of like what is in your physical capability, right? And so there's a lot of ignorance in the world, and there's a lot of people who are completely, they don't give a shit about spirituality, they don't care about they don't believe any of these things, and it's a very sad reality that we're in. There's many people like that, but what we're collectively going through is like a you know, a pressure pot, you know, where that pressure's going to intensify, and it's going to have to force people to reach beyond themselves, and this is going to usher in a great awakening. And so as I perceive it, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but like a part of the reason my year was so intense was because I had received, you know, communication and vision, which I have been for, you know, over 20 years, but like this year specifically, it came in like a lightning bolt, and I have been unpacking it all year long. To try to understand this message that I'm receiving, and this sense that I need to share it with people, which is a very, you know, I've had a lot of resistance to it, but that, yeah, there's some big hardships that are on the horizon, unfortunately, but not to worry at the same time, because this is all leading us to somewhere much, much better. But it's about to get really tricky. And
Yeah.
that's how I see it.
You're not the best at timelines, right? And years, like anything with time, that's not too clear for you. So I'd be like, oh, when is this happening? How
Yeah.
long is it going to last?
It's
When does the good part come through?
I mean, there's clues, there's like clues that I have that are kind of putting me in pockets, but to try to give a date and a specific time is like, for me, I can't do that. And whenever something feels soon, it feels imminently now.
Yeah,
So
but you were telling me 2024, late 2024, early 2025, something radical is going to happen, and humanity will never be the same after that.
Well, no, I want to requote myself, because what I actually said to you is 2024 is the last year that we're going to experience reality like this. So enjoy it. And in 2025, I saw the initiation of a great change. So it's just the starting point. It's not the culmination of the great change. It's going to be like a point of no return. Like something is coming that is going to be so immense and so big that it's going to shift everything very quickly. And from that point, everything will continue to change and we will never go back. And so the message that I received on the new year of 2024 going into 2025 was that this is the last year. And I don't mean like the last year of life. I don't mean the last year we're not going to exist. I mean the last year of life as we know it, like this. And to not take advantage of like simple things like having a barbecue with friends, or going to a concert, or being able to go travel anywhere in the world and go explore exotic places. Like a lot of these things are going to start shifting and changing. And a lot of these little humble, sweet, experiences that we're having are not going to be so readily available to us. Things are going to get a lot harder. And
so it's important to come to Wynwood, Miami, and run around looking at murals, drinking a beer,
yeah,
and smoking, and just living life in the
enjoy
fun
it.
blessings.
Just take it all in,
Yeah.
because things are going to change. And and I don't have any guarantee to say that, but I've also been in this very big process, and from my point of view of what I'm seeing, this is what we're preparing for. And I foresee in the future there will be a day that you wish you could just so simply invite your friends over and have a barbecue and drink a beer. And that might not be something that is so easy to obtain at some point in our future. But that doesn't mean that we're in a bad place. We just might be on a bigger mission. You know what I mean? We might be so busy doing spiritual work or doing these healing works or whatever we have to do to go support humanity who is suffering, that like the ease of sitting down and having a beer and listening to music and doing a barbecue is like the last thing, because we have work to do. And that's what's coming, is we have a lot of work to do.
I like hearing this in a way, because I do allow myself to play a lot, to go out and skate and eat my meat, which many times I would have judged myself for it, or drank so many beers that I wake up the next morning hangover. And then I'm like, Chris, you're not doing the spiritual work. Like here, like you're at the edge of humanity's rising, and you're just goofing around. And then I hang out with you, and I was like, oh man, Julia's in the thick of her spiritual ascension, and I just feel like I'm like, just being me. But then other times I'm like, but I think part of my spiritual mission is to just be me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we're all
to
up
be your
to
own authentic self, and to not put too much pressure on yourself. And this is the time, but like I said, in this awakening, for those who have been keeping up with these shifts, the instructions, the guidance, the current that's taking you. So, it's not like you're going to be confused about what you need to do and when you need to do it. It's going to be very clear. But we're coming into a place where the light workers are going to be called upon to take action, and it's like you said, all hands on deck. Like there's not going to be time for play. It's time for work. And we came here to do this. And I also believe that we all have the message, the code of that message in us. But people have forgotten because they're very distracted with earthly life. But the thing is when you hear this truth, or you're already perceiving this truth in yourself, it activates it and wakes it up. Because I think there's a lot of people here who's like, I know I came here for something important. I know it's big, but I just don't know what it is. I hear this all the time. And it's because we all came here to see humanity into this greater reality. And that's what's coming. And this is what we're preparing for. And yeah.
What's the role of the aliens in all of this?
The aliens, or let's say these, what we perceive to be extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional beings, because they're different, they have a different level of consciousness. As I see it, at least the ones that I've encountered are here to help us. So many of them have been reaching out and guiding us on how to work on ourselves or give us new innovative ideas on how to advance into the next level. And they're here to assist us, but they're these advanced beings with a high level of spiritual consciousness and advanced technologies that are harmonious with nature, and that's where we're moving into. It's going to be a balance of spiritual and technological, and they're here to help us move into that place, and that's how I see that.
So that's that faction of aliens, but there's probably like some more reptilian negative factions of aliens that are also influencing the upper ranks of human society.
Yeah, there's definitely nefarious interdimensional beings that I guess would be considered aliens or whatever, but I don't really encounter those ones much, so I don't feel knowledgeable enough to talk about it. And then that goes into the space of conspiracy theory and like listening to what other people are saying, and if you believe that and you align with that, but that's not where my attention is trying to go. I'm trying to stay really focused on the light and the hope and the positivity, and addressing the realness that what's going on, but trying to offer tools to make sure you really see the prize on the horizon, and not to give too much energy or focus on this other stuff that's happening.
Barriers towards it. Do you believe disclosure's already happening? Mm-hmm. They just told us like a couple weeks ago that they know that alien spaceships are coming out of the water where their bases are, and they got all this recorded stuff. So it seems like this information is coming out more. Do you feel we'll see a full-on visual disclosure of aliens, maybe physical or interdimensional?
Well, it's already happening. There are so many people who are having contact experiences or interfaces, whether telepathically or clairaudiently or just surges of energy, or actually seeing like almost physical manifestations of ETs, but there's no traction with that information. But there are many, in our circles, like every other day I meet somebody who had, I was talking to this extraterrestrial and this and that. It's like in our circles, it's like a common talk, but to everybody else it's not, and it's not in the mainstream news. And there is an uptick of sightings that are happening, and what I foresee in my prophetic vision is there's going to come a point in the near future where when these ships arrive, you're not going to be able to hide it. Like nowadays, you got one random guy with one video that he happened to catch, and we could say it's a balloon, and we could say it's this or that, or some AI generated thing. But soon, something will show itself, and you'll have tens of thousands of people who are all catching that same video from different angles and sharing it very quickly, and they're not going to be able to hide it. And so what I was told was that there was going to be pockets of these cluster sightings, and this is where everything's going to start amping up. And then eventually that will bring everything into the mainstream. But I do, see that they will do an official disclosure, like an acknowledgement, which may have been the information that came out last week, or maybe they'll do a more official statement in the future. But shortly around that time, that's when all of these cluster sightings are going to start. And this is what I see. And those cluster sightings are going to be very hard process for many people, but it's going to very much accelerate the awareness of humanity that there is something more beyond us in this reality. And people will start doing research, and people will get curious, and then they're going to find all these channelers, and it's going to start really breaking everything open.
The mind.
But with that also comes a lot of other stuff, because now you have a bunch of ships in the sky. They're not going to allow travel. We don't know what these are. We don't know what their intentions are, And so things are going to get very grounded, and a lot of people are going to be in fear. And so with that comes a lot of, seeking of help, and a lot of control that comes in. And there's going to be different narratives spun about like what these are. And let's just say all of them are good, and then one bad thing happens. Now all of them are perceived as being bad. So it's a very, convoluted reality when it comes to the extraterrestrials that is coming up. And it's not so simple and it's not so easy. But those that are open and those that are more intuitive are going to know and see the truth. But there's going to be a lot of people who are very, very confused. And so I see this as one of the phases that we're about to head into. And, when we were in Peru, and back when we did that first interview, like I saw during those ceremonies that the government was going to start leaking in the information, and that people were going to start having more contacts. And I'm going to tell you, in these last 3 years, that's exactly what happened. I think it was like a month or two later, the first UAP video came out, and slowly this stuff was coming in. And then in my own clientele, having done readings for 10 years, all of a sudden everybody was having extraterrestrial experiences or memories coming up, or seeing UFOs, videos, all kinds of stuff. So I'm watching it unfold. Everything that I saw has been happening, and I know that I've told you a lot about it, but I kind of shy away from saying it on a public platform. But like those who know me know that I've been saying these things, but now I'm coming to a place where the mission is very strong on my heart, that I need to be very much more open about these things that I'm seeing. And I've been in a very deep personal process all year to get to that place of courage within myself to say these things, so even just saying what I said is something that I've not really said at all, but I'm about to, I'm getting ready to like just say what I see. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I accept the outcome, whatever it is. But I feel like it would be a greater disservice to humanity not to say something, because if it did happen, I could have helped a lot of people. Whereas the only person who's really going to get the shit end of the stick if it doesn't happen is me. So it's like one against many, and that was ultimately the conclusion I got to. I was like, I'll sacrifice myself, possibly being labeled crazy for saying these things. But
you said so many things today already that you could be labeled crazy,
right.
And at this point, who gives a shit?
That's where I'm at now. But it was a process to get to that. To just get to that level of detachment and just having faith in the message and trying to help prepare people for what's coming. But
so what's the best way to prepare people for what's coming? Is it getting some canned foods and water and a nice place to grow food?
Nope, none of that. And you could prepare all you want to, and a tree could fall on you. It's like you can't prepare yourself for the what ifs of all your fears. And then I'm not to say that you shouldn't have like some provisions, and some things in order, but don't make it your obsession. Because what we're moving into is a spiritual reality, and it's your vibration, and it's the code of energy that you're holding that is going to dictate where you're at and what is happening around you in these times. And that sensitivity is becoming, it's you can't escape it. We're moving into pockets of like where you look around your reality, and if you're a high vibrational person, you're with high vibrational people doing high vibrational things. And if you're not, you're in a dark place, and we're all kind of congregating into our little corners, And so what you can do to prepare is to clean yourself and heal yourself and forgive other people. It's a spiritual work that people need to do. And when you hold those higher vibrational energies, the clarity of communication comes in, so the instructions come in. So no worries, you're not going to be where the destruction's going to happen. You're not going to be where the bad things are going to go, because you're going to leave. You're going to be like, I don't know, I just got to leave. I got in my car, I left, or I suddenly feel like I'm going to move here, or I just want to go over there, and somehow you avoid it. And you don't even know that it happens or that you did avoid it, because it's not part of your reality.
Because this is already happening on this planet.
It's already happening.
Yeah. We already have situations in the Middle East, or rains that flood out North Carolina and so many other places. That was some apocalyptic event for that community.
And I want to say this too. So beyond just the healing, the other big piece of it is prayer. And the sad thing is that people are not ready to pray. I say the word pray and people have a retraction, and they have like an aversion or an allergy. Oh, you're going to like push, you're trying to indoctrinate me into some path and all this stuff.
Sounds religious.
It sounds religious. But in the culmination of what I see in the prophetic vision that I've been receiving, is it all comes down to prayer. And prayer is ultimately going to be the thing that saves us. because, like I said, things will be so out of our hands that there's no physical path that we can take to see our way out of what's coming. And it's going to take a lot of heart and a lot of faith and a lot of asking for these divine celestial beings and to come and help us and heal us, you know. And then it's also the work that we're doing within ourselves, and it's these other like incarnate beings that are here, you know, embodied, and teachers and healers who are here who are doing the good work. But you know, it's a big part of it. And the sad thing is there's not enough people who are accepting or awakened to the idea that that has value and that it's very potent and it's very powerful. But it's like we're a very small battalion against, you know, what is it, 8 billion people in the world who might not be doing that. But there are, you know, I had this vision. I was just on a trip, and I went into the oldest mosque in Egypt, and I had never really known much about Islam and being Muslim and all of that. But when I went there and I had this beautiful vision and I saw God, and God was like in the center of this tapestry, and each section of the tapestry was a different culture. It was, you know, Islam, it was Christianity, it was Buddhism, it was Hinduism, it was indigenous paths, it was New Age paths. And I saw everybody where nobody was judging the other. There was no competition on whose path was more real or more right. It was like everything was so intense that we would be inviting and so grateful. Whatever your beliefs are, please come and pray with me. Please ask for this world to be healed. And there's no more judgments. And I saw it as this beautiful woven tapestry that comes in and cords into the source of God. And it's until we get to that place where all of us in our spiritual paths are respected and loved and valued, and that we all can come together for the same primary focus is to envision this world in the way that its potential of what it can be. And that's going to be the thing that saves us, okay? But as long as we're still here blaming and shaming and I'm better than you and ego and all these trips and disrespecting each other, this is going to be a very hard passage. And unfortunately, it's going to get really shitty before we get to that place. And that's what I see. So I don't want to put the fear on everybody. And it's not like all of us are going to go through it, but it's going to be very hard on those of us who are holding the light to observe the destruction that's happening. And we're already seeing it. There are wars happening, and we're seeing it on our screens in a way that we never have before. And it's difficult to watch.
Yeah.
And we feel helpless. And so what can we do? Because there's nothing physically we can do. We can pray. You know, those prayers are powerful. Have no doubt in that. And if more of us are doing it, you know, it can really change this reality. But we need more of us. And so this is what's coming, and this is why the struggle is coming, so that we'll turn to the prayer, because that's what I foresee is going to be the thing that changes the energy.
Beautiful. We saw a good example of prayer and work when we had Hurricane Milton going head on to St. Petersburg, but it would take like half a week to get there. And so many people were like praying for Florida that then it moved enough to not cause as much damage as it could have.
I believe that.
So I was like, great. Is it HARP? Is it natural? I don't know. Either way, it was like a really weird, you know, straight to my little, you know, city that had just gotten flooded the week before from Helene. And there's a lot of fear in the air. But I feel like the prayers of everybody outside of Florida and the ones inside, I've seen trees fall so nicely next to a house instead of on the house that I was like, wow, you know, this works. This is real.
I mean, it's an amazing thing this modern time that we can reach out to so many people so quickly and get everybody's thought consciousness on envisioning, you know, the safety of Florida at that time. And I think it makes a difference. You know, it's like we're in a different time now. And but those numbers of that awareness of what we're trying to achieve is growing, and it's going to get much bigger. But like, you know, when the ETs come and when certain world events happen and we're all seeing it and we're all aware at the exact same moment, there's a consciousness. And if we all collectively see terrible destruction and suffering, we all will collectively choose, we don't want this. This isn't the reality that we want. And that has an influence on this reality, you know? So
are our powers of manifestation stronger now than it
Yes.
was before, or are we
Instant.
just having more awareness of the powers that we always had?
I think the cycles of repercussion, or the cycles of the energies you put out that come back or attract forward, is much faster. It's so accelerated now.
It's like a smaller loop.
Yeah,
of
like to me, it was
resonance.
like in the past lives, you could do something and like 13 lifetimes later, it might come back. But now it's like as soon as you have a shitty thought, you stub your toe. You know what I mean? It's like so quick how these things are moving. You know, so you have to be very mindful how you move through life. And I think it's becoming more and more obvious, even those who aren't spiritual, that they're noticing that when they are in a mood or they act a certain way, everything starts falling apart. You know.
Dolores Cannon had this theory or vision that there was going to be a split of timelines where there's going to be a positive timeline for Earth where the higher vibrating souls would go out and create a beautiful world, and a negative apocalyptic world where people who vibrated that reality into belief. Do you believe there's going to be different timelines, or is it one that we all live, or is it endless timelines?
Well, I see it like this. There's going to be a vibrational shift where we're moving out of this dense reality, and there's you know, we say this is the third dimension, and everyone's saying we're trying to get to the fifth dimension, which is this dimension of love. And then we're like, well, what about the fourth dimension? What's going on in there? Well, the fourth dimension, and I'm just giving it numbers, this isn't like an exact science, it's just for our human minds to be able to understand, is a space between here and there. But the thing about this middle dimension is there's still negative energies, and there's still you know, influences that are dark in that space, but the energy is so accelerated that things manifest very quickly. So as soon as you think something, it appears, okay? But it's also so closely rooted to this physical dimension that it's very real. It looks just as real and feels just as real as anything. So when this new energy comes in, and this is what we're shifting into right now, is many of us will, a huge pocket is going to go into that middle plane where they're manifesting their thought consciousness, or the vibrations that they're holding are co-creating them to be in multiple different realities. It's all part of that same plane, but it's like, who's going to have the hurricane reality, or who's going to have the volcano reality, or the war reality. And so you're moving in, and what we're doing is we're kind of finding our own little communities, be it negative or positive. And, you know, all of those that are signed up for the natural disaster reality are all kind of congregating in those areas. And so as the shift is happening, they're going to experience that. But within that dimension, it's sort of like it's an illusion, because they can very quickly change their mind. Everything moves as fast as you think. So all you have to do is change your mind when you're in that new reality. We're not in that new reality right now. Our toes are coming in, and some of us are starting to step into it, but the actual massive shift hasn't happened yet. So what I see is the whole world is going to go into either that dimension, or those who are truly aligned with the light are just going to flip into this dimension of love and empowerment. And that number to me is much less than those that will go into the fourth. And then I see that there's going to be like a reconnaissance mission, where those that have moved into the higher dimension are going to have like a callback to go to those who are still stuck in the fear and manifesting. And it's going to be a matter of just saying, hey, like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is how I keep seeing it, is like, hey, you don't have to be in the state of fear. And as soon as they change their mind, they move up into this higher dimension. So it's like a mystical, yes, I very much align with what Dolores Cannon says. I very much align with what some people are saying. I do think it's a dimensional shift that we're going through. And I think the rules are different. And right now, what we're trying not to do is go into that middle place where we're manifesting our fears very quickly. And we're really on the edge of that right now, or we're kind of like already hovering into that space. But there's an opportunity coming in which we'll be able to get right up into the light.
Beautiful. So it's a optimistic vision of the future. Will ever I end up in the positive place eventually, or do some people just kind of like eventually die and then go back to the spiritual world, which is oneness of God?
And the way that I received it is everybody makes it, but what we're choosing is how we get there.
Uh-huh.
So you either get the super awesome VIP package where you get like the red carpet rolled out and it's amazing, or you get the other way, which is not fun at all. And we have been cycling through all these lifetimes, and we have been determining through our choices and our actions what the package we're going to get. Like, are you going to get the super, first class, luxe, voyage over into the new dimension, or are you going to be in the,
bunker reality.
Yeah,
Eating
where
beans
it's
for
rough.
a couple of years till they run out.
And so what's being presented is I see that God is giving us an opportunity to have a grand reward, and the reward is going to be greater than any reward in the universe, to be able to experience the shift in this way. And those who have done the work will be very happy, and those who have not are going to suffer through it, but eventually we're all going to get there. It's not like we haven't died before, you know what I mean? It's like, but there's an experience that's ahead for all of us, and right now we're choosing what that experience is going to be, and there's still time to choose, and
how do we do that?
By doing the work, to be kind, to be loving, to forgive, to heal, to have a positive attitude, to be selfless.
A good person.
Be a good person, yeah. And there's still time, and anybody can change their mind right now. You can just choose right now to be thoughtful and mindful about what you're doing and make good choices, and it'll change your reality very quickly, But with that, there's a lot of healing that needs to happen, because you got to undo all the influences that you've been collecting. And so this is why we have light workers and healers and teachers out here to help those people. And this is what the phase that we're about to step into. So there's going to be a great divide, and there's going to be a call to action for so many of us to step up. And I feel like, all these light workers who have been in their studies and learning, and they're like struggling, because the clients aren't showing up. I was like, enjoy it while it lasts, because it's coming, and they'll be coming in big numbers, and it's going to be a big and intense work. And as I said before, no time to sit down and have a barbecue.
Yeah.
Because we have to heal.
Almost sounds like the stories you've told me, where like you'll be annoyed or followed by ghosts, and you're like, okay guys, and then you work them and you zip them back into oneness, and like help them transition into the spiritual world, as opposed to like sticking around planet Earth for many years because they're like in confusion. It sounds like something like that, but different, right?
Yeah, but it's like a lot more of us, not just me or some of the mediums. Like, we're all going to be doing that.
Very interesting. I can't imagine how it'll be and when that will come, and yeah, interesting times ahead of us. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do and for sharing your perspectives. Is there any like final words that you want to give the people who are tuning in today?
To have faith. And the closer you hold the faith to you, the less leaks there are for these negative influences to come in. And so have faith in the light, and hold the light close to you, and trust that this is all leading to somewhere better, and to not get caught up in the fear, and to not give all the energy to all of these things that are trying to rope you into the distraction of feeding and fueling and giving life to the things that are not actually here to benefit us. And be mindful about where you're putting your energy, and put great thought into what your output is, and what your focus is, and what you're fueling, because it makes a big difference.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Jude. I love you. And thank you guys for watching our episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Make sure to like, comment, share, ding-a-ling bell thing so you get the notifications, get more beautiful conversations like this, and I'll see you next time. Blessings. Next episode, Dr. Dax.
People don't feel comfortable, man. People are hurting. And doing ayahuasca, I learned as I'm sitting right here, all that kind of shit, you can just move your chair right there and not sit here no more, and don't sit in your own shit. Step out of the feces, man. And just, I felt like my liberation was that easy. I felt like I was just in all this shit, and I just like tiptoed out of it. And I was like, oh, I can just leave all that shit behind.
Yeah.
Like really, I could have did that so long ago. And now that I realize the power of my influence, I want to use it for good, or I want to just leave everybody alone. I'll go stay in the Everglades the rest of my life and leave everybody alone, and not woo anybody in any direction, but I want everybody to think for themselves, man. A lot of people ask me, oh man, should I do this? Asking me about this, kind of pretending to maybe it can work for them. I don't like to woo anybody in any way, but I do like to woo people to find whatever it is that you're looking for. I can tell you what worked for me, but what works for me ain't necessarily for everybody.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.